Okay everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Excuse me if my hair's a bit of a mess. I've just had a shower, so we'll just ignore that. So today, having a little bit of a change. Obviously I've been trying to do a little bit more long form content, and it's not about trying to get views. It's not about sort of trying to just do YouTube for YouTube's sake. I know that sort of my views on here are very, very low, but all I'm bothered about is if this reaches one person and they find it even just a little bit of use, that's enough for me. That's really all I'm bothered about. So today I want to talk about how to build discipline when you haven't got any left. Now this is where I've been a few different times. So there's times where I've been very up and down. I've been in and out of shape, stuff like that, and I had periods where I've slacked, maybe, certainly after I did sort of the ultra marathon, things like that, like last August. I kind of had a month or so where, fatigue was a little bit much, but at the same time, I was maybe just using that as a bit of an excuse as well. It was, just not being as committed, not training as hard, not dieting as much, and just being slack overall. Now, the thing is, you don't need motivation. It's nice to have something to work towards, but we don't need to always have something to be putting pressure on ourselves with, And the main thing is, in this age of, YouTube, books, podcasts, whatever, we don't necessarily need, another self-help book, another podcast, this, that. A lot of these things have already been said. That the thing I very much try and do is just talk about what I know and my experiences. I'm not trying to play a therapist for people. I'm not trying to, go above my station. It's just literally the things that I kind of know and the things that might help. So the main thing I'd say is you need proof that you can do hard things, and that doesn't have to be 4 a.m. starts, ice baths, long morning routines, or super strict bedtimes. Yes, we maybe need a little bit of that now and again, but start with just one promise to yourself a day. Just build a little bit of confidence, even if that is you're going to get up 10 minutes sooner before your alarm, before work. You're going to get out and get a walk done, something like that. Just a little 10 minutes. You don't have to be walking miles or anything like that. Just something small, just to give yourself a little win to start the day off. Something like tracking your nutrition, maybe just tracking even one meal, knowing what's in that meal. For me at the moment, I'm very much repeating the same few meals, as I'm sure you'll probably see on my Instagram if you're following me there. That's at Ashton Online Coaching if you're not. And you'll see exactly like I'm having a few different meals, but it tends to be the same things that's easy to track. I already know what's in there. I know what I'm weighing out. I know what I need to do. And once you get that, it's very, very easy. So discipline is just self-trust built through evidence. That is the takeaway from there. And momentum is the next thing I'm going to talk about. So once we get one little win, or one big win, whatever it is, we can then keep pushing on from there. It doesn't have to be these major things all the time. You can maybe have some end goal in mind. It was one of my clients, Thomas, this year. We set the plan in January to have this amazing end goal of doing the Cardiff Half Marathon, which he did. But at the same time, in the run-up to that, it was, can we just get 5Ks? Can we get some interval stuff? Can we even just, get some weight off so movement is safer and more effective? It was just those things that then built up to the big win. And once you've done even just something small, momentum is going to build from there, and you will adapt and you will gain that discipline through action. Something that's super important is changing your environment before your mindset even. So if you're in maybe a bad relationship at the moment, I've had a few of them, then it's getting out of it. It's being brave. It's taking a chance. It's, maybe you do need to do that. Maybe you do need to go back to square one, things like that. And if your environment's full of, clutter, people that are bringing you down, people that, maybe don't work hard themselves, then you need to remove them, or at least just see them a lot less. Still do maybe a little bits now and again, but just clean things up. If people are around you dragging you down, not working towards anything, they have the same stuff they're coming out with all the time. They hate the job, they're depressed, fat, whatever, whatever they're not fixing, then maybe you need to pull back a little bit from that and being around that. So limit who has access to you. If anything, you know, this is something I've advised clients in the past, you know, even have things like a private Instagram, something like that. Obviously I don't because of like the business, things like that, but it is nice to just kind of have that control over your circle, who's seeing things, who's like important to you, that kind of thing. And before you dive deep into the mindset, make sure that your environment's on point. Within the first hour of the day, as I touched on at the start, we need to get one quick win in there. For me at the moment, it's getting up, getting some steps in. And I'll be honest, at the moment, if it's pissing down with rain, I'll be in the car, going to the gym, and I'll be starting on the treadmill and doing steps that way, then have my breakfast at the gym, then training, so on. Set myself up all before getting stuck into work at 9 o'clock like I've done today. You know, it's setting that morning up. You get them wins in early, then you can go about the rest of the day. It's things like getting up, hydrating, obviously. Now, you know, the time of year we're in, we're not going to be getting sunlight in England first thing, but it's maybe taking your morning supplements, it's having your fish oil, it's having your vitamin D, that kind of thing. Setting yourself up early, ready to go and win the day. Now, I'm not saying again about long morning routines, anything like that. You know, I don't do that. I don't roll out of bed and have the cold showers and the ice baths, things like that. Like, that's just not me, not what I do. Obviously, those things have the benefits, and I do love a cold plunge, that kind of thing, but it's not... Again, I'm not trying to just hammer myself with the hardest possible thing straight away. It's more about easing into the day. But, you know, it's not about being, as I say, the 4, 5 a.m. guy even. It's just about stacking some wins early so you've already got something on the board and something positive. So, pain versus purpose. So, this is difficult. You know, it's going to the gym, lifting weights is hard. Starting a business is hard. You know, getting out of a relationship that's bad for you is hard. You know, even starting a new relationship, asking someone out, like, all that's hard. You know, none of this is easy. And that's the thing that I'm sure people realise when they fall off the wagon. You know, I've been dieting pretty hard now, again, for about the last, I would say, six to 8 weeks, being back on it, like really, really locked in. And that's, you know, training, nutrition, cardio, steps, the lot. And it is difficult, you know, I'm not sort of getting out of bed and going, great, it's dark outside, let's go and do the steps. But it's just turning that into fuel and setting yourself up properly, especially if you've, I mean, I know I haven't got everything in the line at the moment, but it's the thing of just getting some happiness in there, getting some purpose, some sort of mission, whatever the hell you want to call it, getting something in place before you're going into the day, especially if you're in a job that you dislike. I know for me, you know, when I've been in call centres, things like that, the jobs that weren't fulfilling me, I knew that if I set myself up on the morning, I got the gym, you know, went for a walk, something like that, whatever it was, something productive, something useful, so that when I was on the phones, maybe 12 till 8 on shift at Empower, I knew that wasn't going to derail me. Whereas if I'd had a poem on, if I'd had an unnecessary lie-in, if I'd skipped the gym, if I'd not, you know, had some decent food, some decent breakfast, whatever, I knew that it could all go to shit by 12:05, you know, and that's the reality of things. And if you know why you're doing it, you can push through pretty much almost anything. You know, your early starts, your discipline with the bedtimes, things like that, because all this adds up. So momentum is always going to be the thing over motivation. Now, something I've paraphrased, I believe, before is very much the 10x rule. It's a Grant Cardone thing. Now, one thing I've took from him is just having some sort of ambition and times it by 10. If you want to do a 5K, why not say I want to do a 50K ultra, something like that, just using running as a pure example. Why not set something like that instead? Yeah, that dream's probably going to be scary. Yeah, it might feel a little bit unachievable, but you're going to work towards something bigger so that you beat whatever you set out to at the start. You might end up doing 10K, something like that. It means you're going to be putting 10 times the effort in, 10 times the consistency, and hopefully you would get that 10 times of result. And that's where discipline and things like that are built. And again, as I say, I've kind of gone over this, but again, some on my notes, I keep running a few things into each other, but just that morning movement. If anything, you know what I mean, I still take, you know, my phone out, but I try and set some sort of boundary where I'm not going straight in with client messages, unless I'm waiting for something back. You know, if I've got someone that I'm chasing because they've been a little bit off plan or missing a check-in, then I'll go in and try and set that person up. but at the same time, I'm doing that when I'm on the move, when I'm doing something useful for me. I'm not just sort of in bed or something like that, dealing with client messages, that kind of thing. It's like filming this video right now. You know, the watch is on do not disturb, the phone's on aeroplane mode. I can't be reached. I'm locked in. I'm doing my task, which is for me this video, and trying to, you know, give a little bit of value and some advice. So first thing on the morning, clear your head, lower the stress, get some movement in, and that is very much going to set you up. And going back to the social circle side of things as well, it's spend more time with people who are talking about plans, not problems. Talk about, you know, be with people that are wanting a promotion at work, or they getting a new job, or they even starting the gym, or they working towards something, building something. You know, I'm not saying you need to be around people that are, you know, making millions and driving Ferraris and that kind of thing. Sure, you know, if you bump into someone like that, great, learn what you can from them, but be around people that are just doing something, at least trying. You know, that's the thing. There's a tremendous amount of laziness that goes on, and I know when I've had conversations in the DMs before with people, there's a lot where there's just gaps, and people are sitting, they're just scrolling, they just needlessly, you know, wasting time away, just sat doing nothing. You know, even on days where, like today, I've been quiet, there's been no one-to-ones and nothing like that, I've just kind of set myself the task of getting this video done, doing some client messaging, that kind of thing. But that is what is going to keep me at peace with myself, but also at the same time not kind of have me overworked, stressed out, that kind of thing. Whereas tomorrow, a lot bigger day, 10 hours. So that is going to be a real difference. But again, be around people that are supporting that. You know, the people that, you know, when you say, oh, I'm, you know, working late tonight, I'm not going to make this, be around the people that's like, that's fine, we'll see you next time. And you do that next time. You don't want to be around the people that are complaining at you, you know, you work too much, you this, that, you know, negative, anything negative, and people that are, as I say, in jobs you hate, who are struggling, you know, not even trying to get in better shape yet, complaining about it or looking for the shortcut. Again, don't be around that, and don't be around, you know, the negativity and anyone that's going to bring you down, because especially if you're in a phase, like, you know, I call it like a growth phase where you're pushing, you know, so for me at the moment, I'm very much trying to keep, you know, clients happy, work on the business, work my content, work on building this YouTube up a little bit more, helping people. You know, I've got my podcast to think about. You know, I'm very much including sort of my steps and potentially, you know, working out or moving 3 to 4 hours a day with that to make sure all my boxes get ticked. Doing my meal prep, focusing on sort of me and my self-development, my physique journey, that kind of thing. So I can't afford to have anyone creeping in that's negative. Yeah, if it's just problems, you know, if it's just a little, maybe a little thing, you know, like, can I get your advice, or what do you think of this? But the people that are constantly negative, they've got nothing fresh to talk about, they've got no particular goals, they've got no aspirations, they may be wasting time in jobs, they're not being productive with money, time, energy, resources, they're not trying to get a better life for themselves, but they twist and moan about it and they're just not happy, then that is where you need to draw a line. And that is super, super important. Always track, review and adapt. So what I mean by that is journal, diary, you know, make notes, take on feedback, you know, see how your week's looked. I mean, at the moment I do a very similar check-in to what my clients do. So I'm going through everything from what's my win of the week, what can I do better next week, what's my average steps been, average body weight. I'm doing them check-ins. What's my wins outside the gym? What schedule and conflicts am I going to have with training? You know, I'm doing this every week. I'm keeping track of things even daily. I'm not saying you need to be, you know, doing tons of journaling and writing a lot, but even just having a few minutes, even just the smaller things like getting a bit of a list together of things that you need to be getting done during the day, setting yourself up for next day, setting yourself up for the rest of the week. Those are things that's important, and just review it and adjust it, make it work. And that awareness is going to keep you accountable when motivation fades. Like, I know I had this video written down on my list today. There's also a couple of little other tasks I need to try and get done, but some are scheduled already for like later in the week anyway. So again, this is what's keeping me accountable, and it's very, very useful. So you don't need more information off me. You know, yes, I'd like to think these videos are useful, you know, maybe helpful to a couple of people, but what you do need is accountability and some action. You know, I've worked with the best results I've ever had, I'll be honest, have been when I've been with a coach. I'm currently not at the moment. I'm just very much sort of trying to do a little bit of my own thing. My routine is a little bit flexible at the moment in terms of the days I am training. You know, as I say, last week I didn't train Wednesday and Saturday. This week, because of the way life's kind of working, I'm not going to be training Wednesday and Sunday this week. So it's a little bit difficult, but I am just kind of wanting to prove that I can do this myself after having a very good 18 months with a previous coach that I've been with. So you're not stuck, you're just comfortable. You're in that job that, you know, you hate it, but you can't be bothered to move, or you're not just trying hard enough to get out of it. You're just comfortable. You've built a routine that protects comfort. It's not useful to growth. And motivation, I've said it before, it's a myth. It's the standards that you've set yourself. You've set standards on when you're on a day off to be in bed and do nothing, to scroll on, you know, Instagram, YouTube Shorts, I don't know, Reddit, the news, whatever. You know, you set yourself them standards to have a step count of probably a few hundred steps, which is just maybe around the house, going to the bathroom and getting snacks from downstairs, you know, and sitting in bed and doing nothing and being useless. And that's one of those things. You know, I've had a phase in my life where I was like that, albeit it was quite brief. I was very lucky to have a couple of good folks around us, you know, including my own mother, that was kind of giving us a little bit of a kick to get back into things. You know, I remember particularly over lockdown, nearly coming up to 6 years ago, where I did get, you know, out of shape to say the least. And fortunately, my mother was kind enough to remind me that I was. And that was what got me back into things. From there, I got back into running, got a little bit of weight off and started to feel a little bit better about myself. Environment's ruining progress. I've already said that. The people, the conversations, the day-to-day of what you are doing is killing you potentially. You know, killing your growth. Not actually killing you. Well, it might. Who knows? But the hard truth, again, you don't need more information. It's, again, accountability and action, as I've already said, and someone to hold you to it. Whether that's me, whether it's a friend, family member, I don't care, but that is most likely what you need. I'm lucky at the moment, and I've got, you know, a few good friends around me that, you know, we're all kind of growing together at the moment, you know, and I'm in a very good spot. I've very much sort of narrowed the circle. There's a few people in there, and we're all kind of working towards something. We're all doing things. We're all trying to be better. And accountability, just touching on that, beats blame. You know, whether you're blaming your job, a partner, you know, your past, your upbringing, your childhood, you're blaming things unnecessarily, where it's you that's, you know, if you're like me, coming up to 30-year-old, you're a man. You need to sort things out. You know, no one's coming to save you. It's pointless stressing about the past, living on past failures. The amount of times I've failed, you know, failed music career, you know, I failed, you know, a little bit academically as well. I wasn't as good as I could have been, you know, in sport. Wasn't particularly great at that. Tried as I might, you know, and numerous times where I fell off the wagon, struggled with being in good shape year round, things like that. Again, it's failing time and time again, but there's no one I blame for that. That's myself, and that's the way it is. So take responsibility. That's when you start getting your control back. You can't grow from something that you're still blaming. You don't need another restart. You need to keep the promises that you make to yourself. Start small. That's what I was saying at the start. Start small. Win one promise today. Tomorrow, do it again. Start building a little bit at a time. That's how discipline is built. Keeping those promises to yourself, it's how your self-respect's built. So, I'm going to leave this one there. Hope that was some use. I'll try to keep it a little bit short today, but I've still waffled on. Why? Because I'm bothered. And I hope this helps somebody somewhere. If it doesn't, well, it's only about 20 minutes of my life I've wasted. It's all good. Anyway, I shall catch you in the next one. God bless you. See you later.